Peter, what is the level of appetite within the White House you cover for the fistfight with the Republicans, given how much we know they need out of both chambers?
Well, look, you see President Biden just today talking about having a constructive meeting with the bipartisan congressional delegation at the White House. He doesn't want to fight with Democrats, obviously Republicans, excuse me. I think he'd like to at least continue to push the idea that he is a unifying figure. It doesn't mean that he's ready to make compromises on that $1.9 trillion COVID relief bill that would be satisfying to Republicans. I think that the lesson that he took and that his staff took from the Obama stimulus package early on was going too light in order to try to win bipartisan support you're not going to get was a mistake. So he's going to insist on something pretty close to his original package if he can keep the Democrats in line, even if it means he doesn't get Republicans. But he will continue, I think, to lower the temperature and at least have the atmospherics of bipartisan reach out. Now, Republicans, of course, will say that that's not really bipartisanship, that if you simply ram through your agenda without our support, that's simply one party rule. And that will be a talking point of theirs. Remember, of course, Donald Trump was never much of a bipartisan deal maker, not at all. The difference is, of course, he didn't really promise to be one, whereas President Biden has. And the question for President Biden is, at what point does that promise, unfulfilled, become a problem for him? Or can he simply continue to draw support, as he has pretty large support in polls in terms of approval, by offering the atmospherics of bipartisanship, even if not actual compromise.
You guys have never sounded better on speakerphone, by the way. Claire, here's why I asked that question. This is from Politico. Quote, Biden and Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer need rock-solid unity to ensure the opening months of Biden's administration don't get derailed by intra-party feuds. That dynamic ramps up pressure on the White House to help Schumer keep his caucus together. Claire, I was saying last night, no president has had this much experience in the Senate since Lyndon Johnson. No president has been faced, coronavirus in this case, with as much a single issue presidency since 43 in the days after 9/11. Do you worry about cohesion? Do you worry about this combination of Biden and Schumer being able to keep the flock together?
Here's the thing. I think they need to worry less about fighting the Republicans and worry about internal fighting and really stay focused on fighting for the policies, because the policies are wildly popular. I'll tell you what's not popular right now, Brian. That's Donald Trump and Mitch McConnell and Kevin McCarthy and Ted Cruz and Josh Hawley. They're all underwater. But right now, Joe Biden is in a very strong position in terms of this country supporting him and his COVID relief bill. So if they can keep this together and get the COVID relief bill across the finish line and then follow it with a strong infrastructure bill, even if the Republicans are fighting them, people are still going to support this president because this is stuff they want.
Claire, I got a question for you about the dynamic in the Senate, especially after what we've seen this week. What's it like among this group, tend to be better educated than most folks, to hear remarks or questions from a guy, I'll use his new nickname given to him this week, Ronan Johnson from Wisconsin, a guy who plainly knows better? We've been talking about the big lie. Actually, if we're being honest, there were many. There's Obama wasn't born in the United States. There's it's just like the flu, it's going to disappear. All these educated folks buying in to the big lies. Does it make for tension? What on earth must it be like, since there's only 100 of you in that chamber at one time?
Yeah, I always hesitate to kind of pull back the curtain in terms of individual members of the Senate, because it, feels like a personal attack, and it's something that as a senator you try not to do. But let me tell you, I'm not sure Ron Johnson does know better. There are really, really, really smart people that are Republican senators that know better. Ted Cruz, Josh Hawley, I could put a whole bunch of them in that bucket. Rick Scott, Marco Rubio, but I'm not sure about Ron Johnson. I mean, he spent most of the last 4 years wanting to talk about Hillary Clinton's emails. I mean, how dumb was that? We had, this burgeoning problem of domestic terrorism, and he was the chairman of the committee that I was ranking on that should have been having hearings on this years ago. He had one, drive-by hearing on it and really didn't ever signal to the administration that this is something that should be taken seriously. And we saw what the result was. It'll be interesting to see if he runs again. I think he'll get beat if he does.
Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube channel. You should know that you can follow today's top stories and breaking news and catch up on your favorite MSNBC shows all in one place. Download the NBC News app today.